What is a typical naturalization interview like? I'm Erick Widman. I'm an immigration lawyer. And one of the reasons I love immigration law so much is that no two cases are the same. They're all different, but yes, they do have some common elements. And in this video, I'm going to lay out what some of those common elements are based upon a naturalization interview I had yesterday with my client and friend, Stephen. He gave me permission to tell the basics of his story. And I think you'll find this really helpful and interesting as we break this down for you. So Stephen is from the UK, and he asked for us, Passage Immigration Law, to be his law firm, and I was his attorney through the N400 application process. We applied online. It took roughly 9 months for the interview to get set up in Portland. Once the interview was set up, we got receipt notices. We got the interview notice saying, please come on this date and time. And it was yesterday about 10:30 in the morning. So what we did is we met up a couple weeks prior to the interview to make sure he was well prepared. And we talked about what to expect at the interview, how to prepare for the test, what he should wear, and how long it's going to take, and the general timeline. After that interview prep session, we then met up at USCIS, went through security, and had a seat in the waiting room. Got there about 15 minutes before 10:30, and then we had to wait a while. Also, USCIS in the Portland office set up a new procedure where you're supposed to check in first up there in the waiting room. And their signage is not very good. It's a little confusing. And so watch out. Make sure you check in if you need to right at the top there where you're waiting for the interview. So we checked in and we waited and we waited. I followed up with the USCIS officer about what the delay might be. And they have a delay in general at USCIS because of staffing issues, because of sicknesses, perhaps some people taking vacation, but someone hadn't even looked at the file yet until about 15 minutes before the interview actually happened. So the officer reviewing the case does it right there in real time at the Portland office. They just pull it off the shelf, open it up, pull open the PDF, and review the case right there. And since my client Stephen's case didn't have many exotic elements, all cases are unique, but he didn't have very exotic elements like a criminal history. That review, the case review by the officer, went faster too. So we had a more experienced officer come out who I've had the pleasure of working with for a number of years. And she invited both me and client Stephen back into the office and asked Stephen to raise his right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth? Yes, I do. She had him take a seat. We were both sitting off on the side next to each other. And she asked Stephen to provide his ID. He gave his driver's license. He also had his passport and green card there. The officer, as they typically all do, then gets into the civics test right from the beginning for a naturalization interview. They like to get it over with and proceed with asking 6 out of 10 potential questions about US history and civics. And right before the interview too, we were double checking that Stephen's local congressional rep was in fact Suzanne Bonamici. It was. We looked it up on a nice tool online. And you can bring your mobile phones into USCIS currently. That's nice. You can't bring a laptop, but you could look things up on the internet, get some good wishes from your special someone about the test, and it's convenient. But of course, silent your mobile phones. Silence those. Then the officer congratulated Stephen that he got 6 out of 10 correct. He answered all 6 correctly. And as I tell my clients, for some positive peer pressure, every single one of my naturalization clients has passed the naturalization interview. And a part of that, they've all passed the civics test and the reading and writing test. That's the next thing that Stephen had to do. He had to read a sentence and he had to write a sentence. Then, after that, the officer got into some key questions about his application. So the N400 application, it used to be on paper on the officer's desk. Now it's on the computer screen as a big PDF with these electronic filings, and even paper filings are being scanned and uploaded. That is the future. And sometimes USCIS officers are grumbling that it is harder to navigate. Hopefully they make that easier for them. But everything is going to go in the direction of electronic filings as opposed to the paper filings. So then the officer asked about, well, have you traveled internationally since you filed the application? And Stephen had one trip outside the US. That's no problem, of course, as long as you maintain continuous residence and meet the physical presence test. You spend at least half your time in the United States, you're fine for naturalization. In addition, the officer confirmed that he hadn't been arrested and cited, and he had, so watch out, make sure you always tell the right thing and tell the truth. He had been cited for a speeding ticket, he paid it off, and then that was sufficient. They asked a few more questions about the application, where he worked, what he's been up to. But what was really interesting, she got to the end and she said, congratulations, we're able to approve your case, we're able to approve your citizenship. And she went through all the bad things that the applicant had not done. Have you ever smuggled drugs? Have you ever trained in a terrorist camp? He was fine on all that. He was fine on making sure that he was committed to supporting the US Constitution and the standard questions in regards to the affirmative things you have to support. But then at the very end, she said, congratulations, we can approve your case. Would you like to become a citizen now through a desk oath? She said, would you like to take a desk oath? And she could swear him in right there. The disappointing part was she pushed the button, and this is just the reality of how things work with USCIS. And we waited and waited some more. And unfortunately, the system could not process his approval right there. So it was a bummer. It was anticlimactic. It was a little bit of a letdown, but it was okay. Stephen had a great attitude. When she said, sorry, the system's not allowing us to process your case now, so I can do the desk oath, she said, we'll send out the standard letter. You'll get the oath ceremony invitation in about a month. And that is our experience as well. The attorney gets a letter, the applicant gets a letter, so there's some redundancy built in, which is good. So Stephen, instead of becoming a citizen that day, he has to wait roughly a month. That's okay. He's going to have a certificate of naturalization given to him at the oath ceremony, and he'll hand over his green card at that point. Hope this was helpful and instructive. Happy ending for Stephen. And most people, if you qualify, you should definitely apply to naturalization and naturalize and proceed with that. Okay, take care. Let us know if you have any questions and stay in touch.